Hello, my beautiful bookish people. For this video, I'm just going to do a voiceover with some graphics because I didn't feel like getting a camera out today, but I did want to make this video before the end of July, and today, as I'm recording this, is July 30th, and I didn't want to stress myself filming tomorrow, so here we are. First, I would like you to pause this video and go watch Starla from Starla Reads because she addresses the issues that have happened this year with the reading rush, and her talking about it is from an Own Voices perspective. Now that you've presumably watched her video, or at least I'm hoping you're going to watch her video after this if you haven't already seen it, I'll talk about how I feel about all this. I'm not here to cancel anyone, but whether I ever do the reading rush again will greatly depend on how the creators decide to respond. I can talk about the ableist stuff that they pulled this year, and I already addressed this in my TVR video. They did really well responding to the criticism and did make that prompt much more inclusive. However, the response that I've seen regarding the group book so far, which in the first place, I didn't even know that existed until a day or two after the fact, has not been good. I saw an Instagram post where they said, "We want to apologize for any hurt our book club has caused and want to thank everyone for their thoughts and messages. Our hope for the book club was to have a fun live show discussion, but we weren't able to finish the novel, Such a Fun Age, in time, and so shifted the live show to a random Q&A. We recognize that not finishing the book was a misstep and that our joking about not finishing the book was very insensitive. Being an ally means showing up, doing the work, and uplifting voices, and we are going to try to do better. Our aim for the reading rush is to encourage people to read and come together as a community, and we're sorry that we let you down. We're taking this seriously and are planning ways to make sure mistakes like this are avoided in future. We care about our community and want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to be inclusive and supportive." And the first comment that I saw on this post was, "It didn't, quote, came off as being very insensitive," end quote. It was very insensitive. Rephrase that. Which means that this statement that I just read has been edited because somehow they missed that when creating this. So not only did this first apology have to be edited because the apology and the actions that led to the apology were insensitive in the first place, but they didn't really follow up with what actions they're going to take to, one, right the wrong in the first place, and two, try to make sure this doesn't happen again. I'm going to leave a link in the description box to a Berkeley article of what constitutes a good apology. In this first apology, I feel like we've really only seen the first pillar that this article points out, which was acknowledging the offense. We still need to see a better explanation, a true expression of remorse, because based off of that first comment, I'm not sure that there's remorse, and we need to see a follow-up to what they're going to do better. They kind of touched on it of what an ally needs to be, but they didn't actually say what they're going to do. Now, with that taken care of, I thought I'd give a brief overview of the books I read last week and some fun stats and graphs to go along with it. Last week, I read a total of 24 books, most of which were graphic novels and manga. 2 of these books I reread for the first time in years, both of which happened to be classics. Those were the original of Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen and The Black Pearl by Scott Odell. I ended up DNFing Pride and Prejudice about halfway through because I was not in the mood for that writing style, but I did pick up a manga classics copy of Pride and Prejudice instead and ended up loving it and giving it 5 stars. The original I give 3.5 stars because I will reread it or variants on it, but it's really rare for me to want to reread the original. If somehow you haven't heard of Pride and Prejudice, the main point of the book is about social commentary on women's rights back in the late 1700s in England. It's also about how pride and prejudice, respectively, influence people's interactions and cloud people from seeing true intentions. I talk more about the differences between the original and the manga adaptation in one of my vlogs that I'll link down below if you're interested. The Black Pearl, on the other hand, was terrible, and I gave it 1 star. If you want to know why, you can watch my days 5 through 7 vlog, which I will also leave linked down below. My 2 standalone books were You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson and The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. I gave You Should See Me in a Crown 4 stars because I would love to reread it if it ever turns into a series. I would absolutely love to see a follow-up of Liz in college, but as far as I know, there's no sequel planned for this book. If you want to know my full thoughts on this, you can watch my vlog about it. The Poet X was beautifully written. If you want to know my full thoughts on that, you can go check out that vlog too. But I gave it 3.5 stars because I don't really see myself ever rereading it, even though I enjoyed it. The 2 series that I read were Fruits Basket and Saga. Fruits Basket is a completed manga that just got a reboot for the anime last year. I enjoyed the first half of Fruits Basket, but the second half really lost me because either I'm missing something because I don't have enough Japanese cultural knowledge, or this series straight up queer baits, and I'm not about that queer baiting life. So I gave the first 6 of the collector's edition 4 stars, and I gave the next 5 3 stars, and the last one I gave 2 stars. I really felt like the series was wrapped up more at the end of book 11, and we didn't really need book 12, but hey, that's just my opinion. Saga, on the other hand, I'm head over heels for. When I started reading Volume 1, I wasn't sure if the characters were just rude or if the series was one giant snarky social commentary piece. Well, in Volume 2, it straight up tells you it's about social commentary. So far, Volumes 1 through 9 have been released, and the writers anticipate creating a total of 18 volumes, and I can say hands down that the first half of this series is insanely good, although you definitely need to look up trigger warnings for each of these because they cover a lot of really complex, triggering topics. Here are some statistics for what formats I read my books in. One thing that did surprise me is that I ended up preferring the e-copy of Saga more than I did the hardbound editions that contain 3 volumes each. The nice thing about the hardback version is that it's really high quality, but it was printed on glossy paper and the pages were huge, so it was really difficult to read it under any form of lighting. Believe me, I tried multiple different light sources, having the light sources diffused. I just could not get the glare off of these pages to save my life. The e-copy version, though, you can zoom in on, go frame by frame if you want to, and I didn't have to worry about the glare. The other physical books were the mangas, The Black Pearl, You Should See Me in a Crown, The Poet X, and the original Pride and Prejudice were all audiobooks. The Black Pearl was my only middle grade read. All of the mangas, The Poet X, and You Should See Me in a Crown are YA, and Saga and the original Pride and Prejudice I classified as adult reads. So here, I kind of try to break down some of my stats between disability, queer, mental health, racial, fae diversity, because I read a lot of stuff that isn't real world because it's fantasy, but in the fantasy world, they have their own version of diversity. And then, of course, some books may have no diversity, and some books may have multiple forms of diversity present. So I've added that into things I'm trying to track this year. I ended up classifying Fruits Basket as mental health diversity because it does touch on suicide and suicidal tendencies many times. After reading the end of the series, I do not feel comfortable classifying them as queer, even though at the beginning I really thought we had a couple of characters that were. The only book that had only racial representation was the Black Pearl, but it was for all the wrong reasons. Again, I do not recommend this book. I don't really feel like Pride and Prejudice has diversity in it for a modern setting because it's old, so back in the day I may have classified it as women's rights diversity, but that's not in these categories, so I'm just gonna say nah. And the rest of the books all had some form of racial and queer and mental health representation. And you could possibly argue that one of the characters in Saga also has disability rep since they can only function at night, but I'm personally kind of on the fence with that one. So overall, looking at how I rated my books for last week, I would say my reads turned out more meh than fabulous, but I still managed to have some really fun reads and have discovered a graphic novel series that I will definitely reread over and over and over again. These are just some of the stats I'm keeping track of with my reading this year. If you'd like to see a current stats breakdown video, let me know. Otherwise, I'll just save that for the end of the year. If you've made it to this point in the video, please go tell me what your favorite book you've read recently is in the comments section. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye!